After you hear the story, you'll be able to guess for sure what persistence means. Not to mention all these readers here, for a couple of weeks, have been persistent in learning this. You ready?
Helen Keller was born in Tuscumbia, Alabama on June 27, 1880. She was a good baby. She was happy and smoked. When Helen was just 6 months old, she began talking. But a year later, in February 1882, she became sick. She had a high fever. Her parents and doctors were afraid she would die. Helen's mother held her and placed wet towels on Helen's forehead to cool the fever. After a few days, the illness was gone. But Helen had changed. She had turned away from bright lights. She didn't hear people when they spoke to her. The illness had left Helen Keller blind and deaf. The world for her became forever dark and quiet. Because Helen could not hear other people speak, she did not learn to talk to herself. She forgot the few words she knew as a baby. Helen did things with her hands to tell people what she wanted. Helen pretended to tie her hair in a bun if she wanted her mother. She pretended to cut in buttercups of bread if she wanted them. Helen held on to her mother's dress as her mother walked through the house. Helen touched things to know how they felt and how they were shaped. There must have been many things Helen wanted to do, many things she wanted to say, but she couldn't. Helen was often angry. She kicked, screamed, and cried. Helen was so mischievous. Once she locked her mother in the pantry, another time she cut off all her friends' hair. Helen's parents took to the eye doctors, but nothing could be done to help Helen see again. Helen's parents turned to Washington, D.C. to meet Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone. Dr. Bell had once taught in the school for the deaf. He helped the Kellers find a teacher for Helen. The teacher they found was Annie Mansfield Sullivan. Helen met her on March 3, 1887. Helen called that day her soul's birthday. Helen was not an easy student. Once in a fifth anger, she knocked out 2 of Annie Sullivan's teeth. At first, Annie Sullivan taught Helen proper manners. Then she taught her words. Annie used a finger alphabet. She gave Helen a doll and spelled D-O-L-L in the palm of Helen's hand. She gave Helen a hat and spelled H-A-T in her hand, but Helen did not understand. One day, Annie and Helen passed a water brook. Anne took Helen's hand and put her into the water. In Helen's other hand and spelled W-A-T-E-R. Now Helen understood. Everything has a name. Helen wanted to learn more. That day she learned the words mother and father. She also learned teacher, which is what she called Anne Sullivan. Many years later, Helen Keller wrote that learning lost her the first word gave her so great hope and joy. Helen learned hundreds and thousands of words. Soon Anne Sullivan taught Helen to read the few patterns of placed dots on paper. This writing for the blind is called Braille. Helen learned so much, so fast that she became famous throughout the world. She was called the Wonder Girl. When Helen was 10, she decided she would learn to speak. But Helen could not hear the sound she was making. She did learn to speak, but not clearly. In 1900, Helen became a college student. She went to Radcliffe College. Anne Sullivan sat next to her and spelled in Helen's hands everything that was said in class. Helen was an excellent student. While she was in college, she wrote The Story of My Life, which was read by people throughout the world. Helen graduated with honors in 1904. Helen wrote more articles and books about her life, her teacher, and how she learned. She and Anne Sullivan lectured before large audiences. Anne Sullivan died on October 20, 1936. She had been with Helen for almost 50 years. After Anne's death, Holly Thompson, Helen's secretary since 1914, became her constant companion. Helen worked all her life to help others, especially blind people. She worked for many years for the American Foundation for the Blind. During the Second World War, Helen Keller visited injured soldiers in hospitals. Her visits provided or fostered care and freedom. Helen Keller brought them hope. They would try to lead useful lives despite their handicap, just like Helen Keller. Important people honored Helen Keller. She met kings, queens, and presidents. She met actors, writers, and scientists. People in universities and governments all over the world